Welcome back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast. I'm your host, Massachusetts Pirates team insider Jake Ignaszewski, and I'll be riding solo today. Unfortunately, Lauren wasn't able to join me, but I want to thank you guys so much for making the Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day, as the Red Sox are back to their winning ways and take the first game of a 3-game series against the Toronto Blue Jays as they took the victory 2-1 on Tuesday night. I'll be recapping that game as well as diving into some of the Red Sox's offensive struggles, not only last night, but throughout the last few games. And then also looking into the recent COVID-19 outbreak that has happened within the organization and how that could immediately affect them over the next few games. Now let's get into today's episode.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As I mentioned, the Red Sox started off the Blue Jays series with a win, but it was a tight one. It was a nail-biter up until the end, as we saw Bobby Dalbec score on a Connor Wong sac fly. We'll get more into the nitty-gritty of this game, but we saw Nathan Eovaldi start the game on the bump for the Boston Red Sox, going 4 2/3, allowing 7 hits, 1 earned run with 6 strikeouts, and we saw him allow a solo home run to the Blue Jays catcher Zach Collins in the second inning. And we've seen a little bit of a better version of Nathan Eovaldi in last night's game. We've seen him sort of struggle to start the season, as he currently is sort of the ace for this Red Sox rotation, with Chris Sale still on the IL, coming back from that rotator cuff injury. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this Red Sox rotation continues to perform, especially with, as I mentioned, there's some COVID-19 outbreaks. Hopefully, only those 4 guys that were announced this afternoon are the only ones that actually do get COVID and, have some time off. I'll get a little bit more into that later on in the episode, but as I mentioned, we saw Nathan Eovaldi pitch a little bit better than we've seen him in his most recent outing so far in the 2022 season. Still allowing a good amount of bats on balls. We didn't really see the Blue Jays obviously score too many runs. They were only able to get 1 run against Nathan Eovaldi off of that home run, but that doesn't mean that they weren't putting balls in play. And we saw Christian Arroyo also make some 2 great running catches out there in right field. He's been a little bit iffy out there in the outfield so far, but you sort of expect that from a guy who hasn't really had any experience in that position so far. So it was nice to see him looking a little bit more comfortable in that new outfield position. But specifically with Eovaldi, we saw him have some really good control in last night's game. I just want to see him be a little bit more confident on the mound and maybe get a little bit deeper into the game. Luckily the Red Sox only had to strut out 4 of their relievers. We saw Matt Strahm, we saw Hansel Robles, Jake Diekman only pitched a few pitches just to get the last out there in that 8th inning. And then we saw Garrett Whitlock ultimately close the game for the Red Sox and, put a little bit of a smirk on my face, because if you've been listening to this podcast throughout the offseason, you know how much my co-host Lauren wants to see Garrett Whitlock in that closer role. So it was nice to see him sort of in that top of the 9th inning. And, obviously as a Sox fan, you feel a lot more confident when your best reliever is out there to close the game. So it'll be interesting to see if the Red Sox continue to use him in that role. I really don't think so. I think they'll continue to use him as a long reliever, and specifically later in this week, have him fill in for Tanner Houck in that rotation spot, since Houck won't be able to pitch when the Red Sox go to Toronto. But it was nice to see, like I mentioned, Nathan Eovaldi pitch a relatively efficient game. We saw on the Blue Jays side, Kikuchi went 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, and striking out 3 batters. And, once again, the Red Sox offense struggled mightily, and especially with runners in scoring position. They were 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. We also saw the home plate umpire, DJ Rayburn, had a very scattered strike zone. He was consistent with it, which is nice as a batter, because you sort of expect what could be balls or strikes. But we saw a lot of his so-called strikes on the outer part of the zone, and that ultimately made not only hitters on the Boston side, but also the Toronto side, sort of chase a lot of pitches. And especially when we saw them down in the count, we saw a lot of players chasing towards those pitches out of the zone because they anticipated Rayburn to call them strikes. There was also a time I saw in the 7th inning where JD Martinez was up, and it was a 3-1 count. There was a ball that was out of the zone that should have been ball 4, and it was ultimately called a strike. And then there was a ball in the lower inner half, and it could really go either way, but it was called a strike 3 on JD looking. And in my opinion, he should have been on first base on that specific up at bat. So there's times where you can't really control the way that the umpire is really calling the pitches, but we saw a lot of the Red Sox batters be very off-balanced. That's something that we've seen consistently. Honestly, ever since the season has started, this offense has been so inconsistent. Some nights they go out there and, put up 5 to 8 runs, and then sometimes they go out there and, sort of like today, only put in 2. But, we also saw them get minimal amount of hits as well. Looking at the Blue Jays, got 8 total hits. The Red Sox only were able to put balls in play down for hits 3 times tonight. So, looking at sort of like who really hit well for the Sox last night, we saw Alex Verdugo go 1 for 3. Trevor Story went 1 for 3, and he ultimately scored the first run for the Red Sox in the 3rd inning, doubling to drive in Kike Hernandez. Kike also had an all right night, was 1 for 3 with a nice double. Hopefully his bat starts to get hot. We saw him play very well 2 or 3 days ago against the in the Tigers series. And, we haven't really seen his bat be as hot as it was in that second game in the Tigers series. But, it was a nice win for the Red Sox to get over 500. But now the real question is, how are they going to be able to perform in tomorrow's game 2 against the Blue Jays? Luckily, I'm going to be going to that game. I'm very excited. It's going to be my first game at Fenway Park. In my opinion, I look at Fenway Park as heaven 2.0. So I'm very excited to be back there. And, it's going to be sort of a pitching showdown between 2 guys who haven't really lived up to the expectations and have really underperformed so far this season, in Nick Pivetta for the Red Sox and then Jose Berrios for the Blue Jays. We saw Pivetta only go 2 innings in the home opener. Really has not performed well so far over his first 2 outings for the Red Sox this season. So far, he has a 9.39 ERA. And, looking at Berrios as well, he has 11.81 ERA. And so, unfortunately for myself, I have Berrios on my fantasy team, so it hasn't really been working out too well for me. But I'm hoping that we get to see a lot more polished Nick Pivetta on the mound tomorrow, a lot more confident Nick Pivetta, and we're really able to see him, get back into form. We saw him pitch very well in spring training, and obviously, their performances in spring training never fully correlate to in the regular season, but we've seen his control be a very big weakness for Nick Pivetta so far this season. So especially with the Blue Jays obviously looking to drive in a lot more runs tomorrow than they did in last night's game, or tonight than they did in last night's game. I could see Nick Pivetta having to make sure that he's very efficient with his pitches. He doesn't allow a lot of his pitches to get over the zone, because we saw him get really hit up against the Minnesota Twins on the Red Sox Fenway home opener just a few days ago. As I mentioned, something that was really nice to see for the Red Sox today was their bullpen. And one guy who's been lights out throughout this season so far is Hansel Robles. He's somebody who, anytime he comes in now, I'm very confident when he's on the mound. And he in over 5 innings so far, he has yet to let up a run. He has only let up 1 hit with 5 strikeouts. And when the Red Sox first made that signing, I was a little bit nervous on what Hansel Robles we were really going to see. The Hansel Robles that was a little bit iffy when he first got traded to the Red Sox out of the trade deadline, or the Hansel Robles that we saw in the playoffs, who was lights out. And then, we also saw Matt Strahm pitch very well, pitched 1 inning with 1 strikeout. And then, at the end of the game, there was a very scary moment where Garrett Whitlock slid at first base to cover the base after Bobby Delback knocked a ball down and ultimately threw it to Whitlock for the second out. But, we saw Whitlock get up limping a little bit. I don't know about you guys, but my jaw was dropped and I was just zoned in on the TV, hoping and praying that Whitlock wasn't hurt. Our best pitcher, not only in my opinion in the bullpen, but in the rotation. He's the most lights out right now. And, if the Red Sox were to lose him at the moment, there's not a lot of guys in this bullpen that I would really trust. And the Red Sox would be in some big trouble if Whitlock had to get sidelined. But it was really nice to see, the bullpen and the pitching perform very well for the Red Sox, and especially with such a tight ball game. That's sort of what you need from this Red Sox bullpen, is for them to have the sort of performances that they had in this game. And, hopefully that success can continue, not only for the bullpen as a whole, but, for some of the newcomers like Diekman and Strong, but also as well for Robles, as I mentioned, has yet to let up a run. Knock on wood. Hopefully that great streak continues. But we're going to get a little bit more into the offensive struggles for the Red Sox in our second segment, as well as I'm going to go into sort of the mini COVID outbreak that the team has had over the last few days. But I just want to take a second to talk to you about Blue Nile. And this is an original online jeweler, and it's one of the best places for you to go to celebrate all life's special moments, from creating a custom engagement ring or for gifting a classic jewelry piece, and at all the prices that you won't find at a traditional jeweler. And what a better time to go out and look for some beautiful jewelry than for Mother's Day. Whether she prefers a statement piece or an everyday subtle elegance, BlueNile.com has fine jewelry options for every mom. So shop high quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or gemstone pendant necklace. If you're looking for any type of fine jewelry and you're having trouble finding it, the Blue Nile jewelry experts are on hand 24/7 to help you out, to make sure that you're able to get the best piece of jewelry that your mom will cherish for years to come. So they're available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. So this Mother's Day, give mom something that she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And we have a very special offer for our Locked On listeners. They get 50% off a $500 purchase. And this podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day. So use the code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured to ship free and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. So shop stress-free and find your forever piece. So go to Blue Nile today. So go to BlueNile.com today and get some great fine jewelry that your mom will cherish forever. But I also want to thank you guys so much again for making the Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now also make sure to go out and check out Locked On Now podcast. In this podcast, they recap MLB games with analysis from our local experts. So they're taking fans through the season like no other network. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And in my opinion, the Locked On Podcast Network is your number one spot to get all your sports information. They have podcasts for every single NFL team, NBA team, MLB team, as well as college. And if you want to keep up to date with any of your favorite teams, definitely make sure to check out all the other Locked On podcasts. They got Locked On Orioles, Locked On Blue Jays, Locked On Angels, and obviously this is the number one spot to find all your Red Sox information Monday through Friday. And I greatly appreciate if you're currently listening to this right now. But I sort of wanted to dive into, we talked a little bit who has been struggling offensively for the Red Sox yesterday. And, I sort of gave my opinion on how I believe that they could fix it. But I want to sort of go a little bit more into the numbers. We've seen the Red Sox chase 32.5% of the time. And these numbers were before today's game. The specific numbers haven't come out after last night's game. So that's the highest in the MLB. Their swing percentage is at 51%. That's second highest in the MLB. And their OBP, which is on base percentage, is a 290, and that's the sixth lowest. So specifically in last night's game against the Blue Jays, we saw a lot of rollover ground balls. We haven't seen a lot of hard contact from these Red Sox batters. There's been a lot of weak contact that they've gotten lucky on, and whether the fielder's not in the right position or the ball just falls right. And that's something where you're not always going to get lucky. And especially with this Red Sox offense, with how stacked it is, it's a top 5 offense in the MLB, in my opinion, when they're at their peak. And, we've just seen a lot of guys struggling so far this season. And you kind of expected that with the shortened spring training. But at the end of the day, we're starting to get to the end of April. So it'd be nice to see some guys start to get some consistency, start to, get a little bit hot. If everybody's able to get hot at the same time, it'd be really nice to see the Red Sox continue to stack up some wins and not stay consistently at 500. And as I mentioned, in last night's game, it was a very inconsistent strike zone. And so you can fault some of the batters on getting down in the count and chasing at some bad pitches, but at the same time, there was some of bats where batters were just getting really unlucky, specifically with the calls that were being called by DJ Rayburn. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how specifically the COVID-19 outbreak, the little mini one that the organization has going on right now, will really impact and amplify some of these offensive struggles that the Red Sox have had, because we sort of saw their catching room get completely taken out by this COVID-19 outbreak. Kevin Plawcki and Christian Vazquez will be transferred to the COVID-19 IL list, and they should be back within less than 10 days. Luckily, the 3 guys who did come down with COVID-19, as I mentioned, Plawcki, Vazquez, and I also didn't mention Jonathan Arauz as well. Luckily, they're all vaccinated, so they should be back in less than 10 days. But we also saw Connor Wong as well as Ronaldo Hernandez get called up to replace Plawcki, specifically Plawcki as well as Vazquez in those catching roles. We saw Connor Wong behind the plate in last night's game. And looking at what Wong has done so far in Worcester over the last 4 games so far this season, he's batted .250. Looking at Ronaldo Hernandez, he's struggled a lot down in Worcester. Over 7 games, has a 143 batting average. He's struck out 8 times, over 4 hits. And then we also saw a few other moves as well, specifically to replace Jonathan Arauz. We saw Rob Ref Schneider get called up and his contract selected for the Red Sox. And he's somebody who has played relatively well for the Woo Sox so far this season. Played in 11 games, hit .400 with 1 home run and 8 RBIs. And he's somebody as well who's sort of on the cusp of making that 28-man roster at the end of spring training. Had a very impressive spring training as well. So I'm curious to see how he performs in this opportunity to show what he's got up here in Boston. And then we also saw Rich Hill get transferred to the family medical emergency list. So he's able to attend his father's funeral. This could potentially mean that he's going to miss his next start. So we saw the Red Sox call up Tyler Danish. And Danish is a guy who is another person who was on the cusp of making that 28-man roster. He's somebody who does have some major league experience and has looked very efficient so far over 3 innings for Worcester. As I mentioned, he's pitched in 3 innings over 3 games, only allowed 2 hits and struck out 6 batters. So it's going to be really interesting, especially looking over the next week with the Red Sox traveling to Toronto later on this week. They'll be without Tanner Houck. And as I mentioned, with Rich Hill now being transferred to the family medical emergency list, they could also be without Rich Hill. So begs into question, will the Red Sox fill that spot with Garrett Whitlock? Will Tyler Danish get an opportunity? Will Cutter Crawford potentially get a starting opportunity? Will they go with the opener approach? That's all yet to be answered by Alex Cora and, the pitching staff. But, time will definitely tell. And all I'm hoping and praying for is that, it's not another like COVID outbreak, sort of like what happened in August, where half of the Red Sox roster was AAA players. Luckily, it seems like COVID isn't as spreadable as it was way back then. So hopefully that isn't the case. But it's nice that the Red Sox are definitely being rather safe than sorry. But that is really going to be interesting to see how that all plays out, not only over this Toronto Blue Jays series. They got 2 series with the Blue Jays this week, as well as with the Rays. So some of these division games over this next week are going to be very important. So obviously this COVID outbreak didn't come at a great time for the Red Sox, but you can never really plan for this stuff. But you're going to be able to hear all my opinions of those series right here on the Locked On Red Sox podcast. We'll be posting Monday through Friday. And in our third and final segment of this episode, we're going to go into a little bit of a mental health minute and sort of talk a little bit about what you could be hearing about this team over the next week. But I just want to take a second to talk to you about Built Bar. So we're currently in a time where, you're getting ready for your summer bod and you're getting ready for that nice, beautiful weather. So what a better way to help you not only get fit, but eat right than eating Built Bars. So it's the time of the year where, you sort of give up on your New Year's resolutions, but you're also getting to the point where you got to get back to getting in the gym to get ready for that summer bod. So make sure to not only stick to your resolution, but eat right thanks to Built Bar. And what's nice is that it doesn't even really feel like a resolution, because I'm the type of person that I actually like eating Built Bars. I would actually much rather have them than a candy bar, especially like some of the other great flavors that they have, like Puffs. And if you've never had Puffs, you're definitely missing out, because it's one of the best tasting Built Bars that there is out there. Puffs is the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, and they're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. And some other really great flavors, as well as yummy cinnamony churro, also coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, and those are just some of my favorites. And as I mentioned, all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. 100%, and it's low calorie, high protein. You can replace it with your candy bars, and in my opinion, they're even better. So go to built.com, scroll down to the macros chart, and you'll be blown away by the high protein, low carb, high fiber, and it's something that is really going to help you be able to achieve your workout goals. So at Built Bar, they're not just all about the taste, but they try to make it as delicious as possible first, and then figure out how to make it as healthy as possible. So we have a great offer for you. Go to build.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. And so now going into this third and final segment, I just wanted to do a little bit of a short mental health minute. If you're sort of getting stressed out at work, things might not be going your way. I sort of had a little bit of a tough day today. Unfortunately, right when I got out of work, I saw that my car was towed, and pretty much what I had to do is look at the things that went right today. And luckily, I was able to go to the towing place. There was a guy there, and he was able to easily help me get my car out. And he mentioned to me that I wouldn't have been able to get my car if he wasn't there. And so I sort of looked at it as, I always say everything happens for a reason. So I was very lucky that I had somebody, one of my friends still at work, who could drive me to the towing place. I was very lucky that there was somebody there to help me out. So there was a lot of things that were going my way. And uh, even though in my mind I was thinking in my mind, I just can't catch a break. And at the end of the day, that happened for a reason. I learned from it, and that's just how you really got to look at some of these situations, and really be grateful, because I could not have a car. I could not have known somebody who could have driven me to the towing place. And when these tough situations come up in your life, they happen for a reason, to help you learn for the future. And so I hope that helps you put into a little bit of perspective of what you could be grateful for in your life. And I also hope that you're able to take what I'm saying and apply it to your own life. But as always, I greatly appreciate everybody who takes any seconds out of their day to listen to the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and make Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. And if you love this podcast, then you're going to love Locked On MLB. It's hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call him Sully. He brings his unique perspective on the major leagues, past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Something else that's free is following Locked On Red Sox on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. Go over there and give us a follow. We post daily Red Sox content. Also follow myself on Twitter. It's at Jake Iggy, as well as my co-host Lauren. It's at la Lauren with 4 R's. Or excuse me, la 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. There you go. That's right. As always, thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. And, we got a super exciting next few series, divisional series, that could be huge for the Red Sox going into May, with a lead in the AL East. And ultimately, so as fans, we don't have to be nervous that they're going to go under 500. So definitely make sure to stay tuned on the Locked On Red Sox podcast for episodes Monday through Friday. But as always, I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. And lastly, let's go Sox. Peace. Have a good one.